Good morning to you. And March is marching on. It's the 7th of March. And on this Friday morning, if you've joined us, you are on the fifth connection, where we take daily opportunities over the 5 days of the work week to share with you the unfolding story of a letter that was written to Christian Hebrews, that they no longer remain Hebrews, because these Christian Hebrews were in danger of defection. They stood in danger of falling away. So this morning we continue where we left off in a previous episode to look at this new pact that God enters into through Christ with his people. Because you see, the first party, who's God, found a problem with the compact, with the covenantal arrangement that now will be resolved by a new covenant. And you need to take note where the problem lay. It says in verse 8 of chapter 8, God finds fault. That's the he. The antecedent of he is God. For he finds fault with them. Who's them? The antecedent would be Christian Hebrews, those who are part of the family of God, who've come in from Judaism and embraced Christ Messiah as king. He finds fault with them when he says, well, what does he say? Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Notice, both the northern and the southern kingdom are included. The north goes into Assyrian captivity, all 10 tribes. And in 586, the southern kingdom, 2 tribes, go into captivity under the great oppressor of Babylon. Verse 9 says, the new covenant is not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant, and so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. Now, please notice, the problem wasn't with the covenant, it was with the covenant keepers. Those who said 2 and 3 times, all that God says in the law, we will do. All that he says, we will do. And in the very next breath, in Exodus chapter 33 and 34, you see them casting an idol, a golden calf, and bowing down to it. That's why he says in verse number 9, it's not like a covenant I made with their fathers. Verse 10, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my laws into their minds. Now notice what's going to happen here, or is happening here. The people of God, in this case Israel, will receive internalized controls of knowing the Lord's grace universally. So it spreads not only from Israel, but to the whole earth. He says, I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. God gives us an internal locus of authority. In this case, it was a promise to Israel, with benefits that accrue to the whole world, all the earth. And the locus authority is now not purely external, but there's an internal locus of authority, and the two work in tandem. I will put my laws in their minds, write it on their hearts. I will be their God, they shall be my people. And of course, this is a reference to a lot more than just the Hebrew people. The 10 tribes that go into captivity are said to those tribes will be revived and brought back to the land. And of course, everything else that accrues in light of that, according to Romans 11, verse number 25. And they shall be my people, because in the book of Hosea, they would be lo ami, not my people. And God would make a people who are lo ami, ami. Those who are not my people will become my people when Gentiles are grafted in. Verse 11, and they shall not teach each, and they shall not teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me. Notice the phrase, all know me. They shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. For I will be merciful toward their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. This is what the new covenant promises. God will put his law in their minds, write it on their hearts, and he will be their God and they will be his people. And verse 11 and 12 says that they will know the Lord. They will all know the Lord because of his grace toward them. Now, isn't that a wonderful expression of God's grace? The old covenant had limitations. And even though Israel tried to obey and tried to keep the law, she could not keep it with perfection, because that's what the law required. The law required perfection. But the law could not give that. The law was not designed to save. The law was designed to regulate those who had a relationship with God. But you see the limitation. The limitation was not with the law itself, but with those who were functioning under its domain and under its rule. And now verse number 13. The old pact is obsolete and will disappear. Verse 13 says, in speaking of a new covenant, he, that's God, makes the first one obsolete. And what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. Now there's again the obsolescence that was built in. The law was never designed to save, because then salvation would be by works. The law is based upon an oath of allegiance, and in this era, an oath of allegiance to Christ, pledging allegiance to the Lamb. And he is Lord over them as they conduct their lives under his rule, because now the law is inscribed, the rules are inscribed on their hearts and put into their minds, so that they function by an internal locus of authority. Colossians chapter 1 says, Christ in you, he's the hope of glory. He is in you. The Spirit, according to John chapter 14 to John chapter 16, is the one who is in us and abides with us forever. Now, those are amazing promises, because we have an internal motivation to do and to please God. And as we grow in the things of the Lord, the more powerful that internal locus of authority becomes. It's truly out of our innermost being, rivers of living water will flow, because in John 4, one drink satisfies and will gush into a flash flood of living water that flows. And so Christ in us and through us is the one who energizes what we do, what we say, and what we think. But we need to learn to grow in the grace and the knowledge of God. The old pact is obsolete, and when the Lord calls this covenant new, he then treats the first as obsolete, meaning that it will soon disappear as outdated because it could not do what the new covenant is able to do, give you an internal locus of authority. Christ in you, the hope of glory. And that is how we walk. That is how, as followers of the way, we can follow the way which is Christ. We have embarked on a journey of discovery of truth because He is the true and living way. And He wants us to engage in this new adventure, the adventure of, in a sense, saddling up our horses. We've got a trail to blaze, says Steve Curtis Chapman so beautifully. And so we've got something new to enjoy, something fresh, something that is alive. It is a hope that is anchored on the other side of the curtain, inside the veil. It is steadfast, it is sure, and that's why we can, in a sense, bargain with the future, because we can make decisions and choices that will benefit not only us, but those around us and those whose lives we touch. Christ is the supreme mediator. You will remember our Codessa example. When things got deadlocked in Codessa 2, it took some very careful thinking, external pressure from the US president, for example, from internal experts who were advising. And after a 2-month silence, the talks got back on track because of skillful mediation. Wow, we've got a wonderful mediator who lives on the basis of the power of his indestructible life. He's the one who stands in the presence of God, mediating on our behalf. So we have dual advocacy in a sense. The Spirit who is in us, Christ who is in us, but Christ is also at the right hand of God, making intercession for us. The Spirit interceding for us, according to Romans 8, with groanings that cannot be uttered. When we don't know what to say and what to pray, the Spirit is able to communicate our desires, our needs in the presence of God. And so that's what gives us sure hope. That's what gives us the audacity of hope, a brave hope, because He has enacted a new way, a new covenant, a better way, a better covenant. Are you taking full cognizance of the fact that He has provided, He has inaugurated a way which is like none other? It's not 10 rules, 5 laws, 3 techniques. It's about following the way which is Christ. It's a way of living in fidelity to the flow of reality. Is that where you are conducting your life? In the flow of reality, or you're constantly going against the flow and getting crushed by what reality throws at you? At this end of the work week, I trust that you would have a good day as you enjoy the way which is Christ. Have a good day.